Alright, man, peace. So as many of you brothers know, if you've been on my channel long enough, I am a boxing aficionado. I love the sport. I think that it's the greatest manifestation of mano a mano, in the physical form at least. In the mental form, in the spiritual form, that's a whole other conversation. But in the physical form, the greatest expression of mano a mano, in my view, is boxing. I'm sure that other people will state mixed martial arts. That's okay. In boxing, I don't think that there's anything to match the level of mental acuity as well as physical dexterity and stamina that top level boxers are able to exhibit in the highest level matchups. Well, anyway, well over 10 years ago, I'll never forget, NBC debuted a boxing tournament called The Contender, which gave many lesser known boxers a chance for exposure. They engaged in, of course, a full contact tournament, an elimination tournament, where eventually they staged a bout that was, proverbially speaking, a championship level fight. And it broke certain fighters. When I say it broke them, it gave them national spotlight. Fighters like Sergio Mora and Cornelius Canine Bundridge. Well, the show went away for a while, but it recently has been brought back on the Epix channel, with the MC being the great fighter, Mr. Andre Ward, who's recently retired. Well, he stopped by ESPN to discuss the show, as well as what his views and perspectives are in regards to his own career, because he has recently retired, and whether or not he's going to come out of retirement to possibly challenge for the cruiserweight belt. And also, what are his opinions on many of the other top fighters in the game today and the top bouts that are coming up. So, of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
I had to really go into my bag of tricks to offset the volume punching of Eric Walker.
Guys, come on, bring them over and let them watch some of the boxing. You watching the champ of the world.
Being in the ring with these young fighters, it reminded me why I missed the sport. But it also reminded me why I walked away when I did, because it's hard work.
Top level pure boxers like Andre Ward, Floyd Mayweather, Bernard Hopkins, Pernell Whitaker, they're able to get in the ring with high level sluggers, fighters that are demolishing the competition and nullify what they do best. That's why high level boxing is known as chess.
Joining us now is one of the greatest fighters to ever live. Multiple world titles in 2 weight classes, an Olympic gold medalist, and a perfect 32-0 record with 16 KOs. And now he's the star of the hit TV show The Contender, which returns on Epix starting this Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern. We will get into that in just a little bit, but Andre, I want to start with your retirement. You said you've been missing the ring. What are the chances you could come out of it?
Let me say this before Andre Ward answers, because we already know the answer that he's going to give. The political answer of, I don't know, right now I'm retired, I'm enjoying retirement. In all reality, he's allowing his body to rest. He's following the Floyd Mayweather paradigm, the pattern that was established by Floyd of once you get into your early 30s, you allow your body to heal. You let the build up for a potential comeback and a big super fight foment amongst the public. You let the boxing media do all the promoting for you. And then when the time is right and the opponent is right, you come back for a mega match. That's the blueprint that was laid out by Floyd Mayweather. And really Sugar Ray Leonard before him. They were the first fighters to retire, come back for a big match, retire again, so on and so forth. Andre Ward is following that blueprint, and good for him. I watched the first episode of The Contender. It's very obvious that the brother still trains, he still works out. Is he in championship level condition? No, absolutely not. Fighters don't get into championship level conditioning unless they're training for a championship level fight, because you put so much wear and tear on the body over the course of an 8-week fight camp that you cannot keep that level of conditioning up for your entire life. You have to allow your body to recuperate and heal. So it's very clear to me when I watched that first episode that he is still training. He's trying to keep his body in good enough condition so that when he does choose to greenlight the Tony Bellew fight for the cruiserweight title, that he does not have that far to go to get back in the impeccable condition that he's going to need to be in order to defeat Tony Bellew or whoever is the current cruiserweight champion, because I do believe that he is going to come back eventually. Most likely within the next year or so, year and a half or so. If he's not back by then, he's not going to come back.
It's the $1 million question, right? Yeah, people don't ask me how I'm doing anymore. That's just, they just leave with that. Like, okay, when are you coming back? I don't know what the chances are. You know, it's not something I'm planning on doing. I was sincere and serious about the decision I made and the reasons I made the decision. And, you know, I'm just living life. I'm enjoying life. Probably one of the busiest years of my life since retirement. And it's been all good stuff. So I'm just taking it a day at a time. But, you know, unfortunately, I have no plans on coming back.
My former broadcast partner, Andre Ward. Dre, you say it's $1 million question. Well, what if it's a $10 million question against Tony Bellew or some kind of extravaganza? You both appeared in Creed. He's recently won a big fight, former cruiserweight champ. Something like that, a matchup that would be a huge event overseas or here. Would something like that in a $10 million question yield a different answer than the $1 million question?
I have no doubt about that. Most likely he's going to fight Tony Bellew in England as well, because I think that he's going to have to go to England in order for the fight to generate a big enough purse for him to come back and to garner enough attention from the public.
I mean, in theory, that sounds good, right? But then you start to process what you have to go through to get to the fight. And it brings me back to the very reason I retired in the first place. And I think it also, you know, it lends credence to the fact that, you know, me and my wife, we did what we were supposed to do with what we had in our hands, the money we had, investments, and just making right decisions along the way. So when you do want to walk away, you don't have to be a slave to that offer that may or may not come.
Right. I don't think that you're going to be a slave to the offer that may or may not come, but I do think that you're going to be a slave to your gift. And you are gifted, bro. And that gift always calls you back, at least until your body breaks down to the point where it's obvious to everyone, including yourself, that that gift has been stripped from you. But as of right now, the Lord still has you in the possession of that gift. And that gift will call you back. I have little doubt about that. So you can get on TV and you can claim that you don't want to put yourself through the fight cam all over again. I'm sorry, bro. I don't believe you. I'll give you about 1.5 years to prove to me that you're not going to allow that gift to call you back into the ring again. But you're super competitive and you're gifted.
I can appreciate that, Andre, and I applaud you for it. But I guess where my interest lies in, I thought that Kovalev was essentially, Sergey Kovalev was definitely dominating the division. He was undefeated until you beat him twice and knocked him out the second time that y'all won against each other. Is that your way of saying that you walked away good health, you made the necessary plans, took care of yourself and your family the way that you and your wife had planned to, and that's the reason that you could walk away? Or did the lack of interest in the division or in the sport beyond Kovalev ultimately play a role in your willingness to walk away as well?
Well, I think the damage that he took in those 2 fights against Kovalev also necessitated that he take some time off. A lot of people don't understand. They just look at the winner and the loser. They'll look at the loser's face and they'll say, well, wow, he got his ass whooped. Look how lumped up he is. Well, oftentimes in big-time fights, the winner gets just as lumped up as the loser does. And Andre Ward took a lot of damage in both those fights against a puncher that has devastating power in both hands. So kudos to Andre for being able to survive 12 rounds with Kovalev in the first fight, and kudos to him for being able to walk through Kovalev's power in the second fight and break down Kovalev with his own power. But make no mistake about it, the reason why he decided to hang him up and take this little hiatus is because Sergey Kovalev took out his pound of flesh as well.
No, I don't think it was a lack of interest, because if I stayed around, it was going to be for something historic and something very, very big. It was going to be cruiserweight or heavyweight. And we had talked about that, my team and I, publicly, and, you know, we meant that. But, again, when you look at the totality of the 20-some-odd years that I've been doing this, you have to add that up. You have to do the math. And then you got to have some foresight. If you look at the sport of boxing, as we've talked about many times, there are not a lot of good endings. I want to change that narrative, and I want to give the young guys hopefully something to point to and say, look, I'm going to get in, I'm going to get out, I'm going to make my money, I'm going to create my legacy, and then I'm going to go do the Andre Ward.
Well, brother, let's correct some of your statements, because you're not creating a paradigm here. The paradigm that you're following was really created by Sugar Ray Leonard. He was the first mainstream, particularly black fighter, to retire from the sport and still maintain a level of affluence after he was gone. And then Floyd Mayweather took it to a whole other level. And then, of course, we also have De La Hoya, who was able to take his earnings and capitalize on it in another venture. But no, when fighters retire, they're not going to say, I'm going to follow Andre Ward. They would say, I'm going to follow the Floyd Mayweather pattern. because he's the one who's taken it to the utmost degree in regards to retiring healthy, or at least relatively healthy as far as we know, and still wealthy as far as we know.
Andre, yeah. Speaking of the sport of boxing, Dana White just came out and said the UFC is now worth $7 billion, and he's a boxing fan, but he said mixed martial arts is now flat out better than boxing. What do you say to that?
The reason why Dana White is saying that is because he's tried to make some inroads as a boxing promoter, and he's been unable to do so. The UFC is very popular right now, but boxing is always going to be around for the simple fact that it's always been around. And boxing is more associated with higher class audiences, and certain people might get offended by that. It's just the truth. There's a reason why boxing is known as a gentleman's sport. When you knock your opponent down, you step away to a neutral corner, the referee counts and allows your opponent to get back up. In mixed martial arts, you knock your opponent down, you jump down upon him while he's already incapacitated and continue to pound him. It is not a gentleman's sport. So it's two totally different class of combat.
He said that it is better than boxing?
Yeah.
Well, of course he's going to say that because he has an interest in, in that comment. I've never been a UFC guy or an MMA guy or boxing. Like, I feel like they both can do their thing,
Absolutely, they can both coexist.
I think we should actually work together in many instances and create more matchups like Mayweather and McGregor, where we can do.
Absolutely. Once again, Andre Ward's own words are proving that Floyd Mayweather is the person that's created a lot of the patterns that fighters wish that they could follow. I mean, now that I think of it, maybe Andre Ward is stating that fighters may want to follow his pattern because they'll view what Floyd Mayweather has done to be way above the level of possibility. Because the things that Floyd has done, even though they may have been lambasted at the time, other boxers looked at it and said, wow, can you believe he did that? He was able to create a 9-figure event by fighting a mixed martial arts star and got away with it. Can you believe that shit?
Do cross promotion. I don't believe it's either or. I don't agree with his comments, but I understand why he made them.
Yeah, Dana's actually a big boxing fan. And by the way, I wouldn't rule out the possibility that he winds up doing something in boxing.
He's been talking about it.
Yeah. He's a big fight fan. Andre, I want to get back to you and your retirement, of course. I never think that an athlete truly knows. Like, Rocky Marciano and now, so far, Floyd Mayweather retired undefeated. But that's not the goal. The goal is to stay that way.
Well, Rocky Marciano retired and stayed retired because his wife put so much pressure on him.
That record doesn't really exist until...
He was actually getting better by the end of his career. When you watch Rocky Marciano's early fights, he looked like a complete novice, a complete amateur. But by the end, especially his rematches against Ezra Charles and his fight against Archie Moore, he was actually starting to become extremely technically sound in combination with the toughness, the grit, and the unbelievable power. His conditioning is stuff of legend. That guy used to run 20 miles a day. He used to do exercises for his eyeballs. Like, he was just a workout warrior to the nth degree.
You're no longer with us, right? Like until the guy passes away, you don't know if he's ever going to come back. Can you really say you know when you're still not at the, or let me rephrase, you're not yet at the age, it seems to me, where your body can no longer do it if you ask your body to do it. Do you feel the pressure as you get older to test whether, could I still do this if I wanted to? And will that have anything to do with your staying retired or coming back?
Well, if Andre Ward does decide to come back, you can best believe that you're going to hear stories about him sparring in the gyms in full contact, meaning with no headgear, maybe even with fight gloves on and not sparring gloves. In other words, he'll be wearing 10-ounce gloves in his sparring matches as opposed to the normal size gloves that you wear in sparring. Ray Leonard had a series of quote-unquote real fights in his fight camp in the build-up to his mega bout against Marvin Hagler because he felt like he had so much dust to shake off due to his long layoff when he was forced to retire due to the detached retina. So it's very common, especially for high-level pure boxers, to make sure that their sharpness and their reflexes are up to par before they return to high-level combat.
I mean, that's a great point and a great question. In retirement, you think about all of that stuff. It's not just one thing that you're pondering on. You're thinking about, if I ever come back, I should probably do it sooner than later. You think about you know, maybe the opportunities legacy-wise, financially, but then I always come back to square one, which is I'm processing how my body's feeling. I'm looking at, again, I can't state this enough, the history of our sport and the bad endings that we've had, and something...
That's for damn sure. Bernard Hopkins literally got knocked out of the ring. That man looked like Martin when he fought Tommy Hearns.
Something in me, like Nazeem Richardson on the Contender Show put it like this to me. He said, you know, the fighters are asking him, Nas, do you think Dre's gonna ever come back? And he said, listen, he said, as long as Andre, he said, as soon as Andre starts to treat retirement like an opponent, I have no doubt that he'll never come back. And that's essentially what I'm doing. I'm looking at this like it's another test. It's another fight. I have people on one side supporting me saying I did the right thing and I was smart for making that decision. I have people on this side saying that, man, you retired too soon. You were just getting your just due. That's exactly how my career was. And I'm trying to lock in on my decision, stay focused, and follow through with my commitments.
That's a great name. You brought up Nazeem Richardson. I've known him for years. Make sure you tell my brother I said hello. He's a great trainer as well. Let me say this.
I like what Andre Ward stated there, but at the end of the day, to me, it's exactly what I stated earlier in this video. The main opponent that Andre Ward is fighting now is his own gift. He's extremely gifted. And it's very, very difficult to be gifted in combat, because that's one of the few gifts where you're told it's time for you to stop exhibiting your gift because you've taken too much damage. An artist can utilize his gift or her gift until their death. So can a writer. So can a photographer. So can a chef. Unfortunately, someone who's gifted in combat can only utilize that gift until they start to lose their physical attributes. So that's truly who or what Andre Ward is fighting right now, is that gift, because he knows that at 34, however old he is, he can still do it if he trained hard enough. He knows that already.
Triple G, Canelo Alvarez, rematch, September. Who you got?
This is going to be a very difficult fight to call. I'll probably be doing a preview video about this the day before the fight. As strange as it sounds, even though I thought that Canelo outboxed Triple G, I thought that Triple G did enough to maintain his title. Normally in rematches, the better boxer is able to exert himself against the better puncher. But I'm just not quite sure how great a boxer Canelo Alvarez is going to be in this up-and-coming fight, especially if he's not allowed to use the performance-enhancing drugs that he felt like were necessary to maintain his stamina and footwork. Anyone who's watched Canelo over the course of his career knows that he's a very skilled boxer. He has great body movement, great upper body movement from the waist up, very good head movement, very good defense, but his feet are very slow, and his feet get very tired as the fight wears along. And I think that that was what was on his mind when he decided that he needed to use clenbuterol, or whatever performance-enhancing drug he allegedly used, to instill in him a sense of stamina and endurance so that he would not wear down against Triple G. Because in most of Triple G's fights, he's going against top-notch fighters that are more skilled than him, but he just wears you down. He's like a buzzsaw. And his skill is underrated in regards to his ability to cut off the ring and to understand what his opponent's trying to do to him. He's not quite as quick as he used to be. He does not cut off the ring quite as well as he used to. I'm talking about Triple G. But I think that he's going to try to punish Canelo. As of right now, I'm not quite sure who I'm going to pick. By the time I make the video, I will have come to my decision.
Personally, I'm going to go with the guy who has more tools in the toolbox. And I think historically, if you look at the sport of boxing, in rematches, the guy who can do more typically does better in rematches. Now,
I agree with you, brother, but on top of that, we all know that you have a rivalry with Triple G. You guys had a much ballyhooed fight that you were negotiating for many years that never went through. Part of that is because you were both HBO fighters, and HBO decided that they were going to side with Triple G. We all know the reason for that. He had the complexion for the connection. They did not put appropriate pressure on Triple G to make sure that the fight got made, and therefore the fight never got made. So you're still holding on to a little bit of emotional baggage in regards to why you don't, quote-unquote, like Triple G. I'm not saying that that's the sole reason why you're picking Canelo, but I do think that there's still an element of that in your prognostication.
Now, again, this is boxing. You know, one punch can change things. Golovkin is a lot bigger than Canelo Alvarez. But one thing that I like about the preparation of Canelo is that he's not as big and as bulky as he was the first time around.
That's true. But will he have the same power that he had the first time around to try to keep Triple G honest? Will he have the stamina with his footwork to stay away from Triple G? That's going to be the question.
And I believe that he understands that it's not all about size. He needs to keep his quickness. He needs to keep his speed, and that's going to suit him in this rematch against a guy who's, if I'm not mistaken, 36 years old, and he has a lot of miles on his odometer.
Yeah.
He does have a lot of miles on his odometer, but once again, Canelo has never been known for having fast feet. And what will his punch resistance be now that he's off that shit? Will he be able to take flush shots to the jaw from Triple G now that he's off that shit? We're going to find out.
Yeah.
Andre, you're in the media now, which means that whether you like it or not, you're going to have to talk pound for pound. You were pound for pound when you retired, number one. I've heard you say Crawford's one and Lomachenko's two. At least that's what it sounds like to me. What could either one of those guys do to cement their status as the best pound for pound fighter in the sport in your eyes?
Right now, and I'm sure that many brothers will disagree with me, I have Lomachenko as the number one pound for pound fighter. I think that it's very slim over Terrence Bud Crawford. I just don't quite believe that Terrence Bud Crawford has that signature fight against that other top-notch fighter for me to say, okay, this guy is definitely the number one fighter. Even though he's been able to attain all the belts at the 140-pound weight class, he currently has a belt at 147. If he's able to defeat all the other champions at 147, not only would I make him the number one pound for pound fighter, now we're going to have to start talking about Terrence Crawford in all-time rankings, because he will most likely have beaten a Keith Thurman and an Errol Spence in order to clear out the 147-pound division. So I have to wait on him a little bit. What I saw Vasyl Lomachenko do to Gary Russell, who's widely considered one of the top fighters in the world, right there I knew that he was special. What I saw Vasyl Lomachenko do against Linares a few weeks ago showed me what he can do and how special he is, because it was very clear that Linares had a discernible size advantage over him, and Lomachenko was still able to knock him out.
I think right now it's cemented for Terrence Crawford. I don't think it's a debate. You know, I know people.
I think that it's a debate. I certainly think that it's an argument. I can go either way on it, but right now I have Lomachenko because I just don't see any huge names on Crawford's ledger for me to say that without a doubt he's number one pound for pound.
They bring up Lomo a lot, and, you know, he has a lot of special effects, and he does.
So what could Lomachenko do to change your mind?
I think he needs better competition, and that may not be something he can control.
Well, to be quite frank with you, brother, I would say the same thing about Crawford. Crawford, for the most part, has stayed on the top-ranked side of the fence. He's talking a lot of shit about Al Haymon fighters, and we're going to find out how sincere he is. And I love Bud Crawford. I think he's phenomenal. But I've seen him in too many fights that he was losing going into rounds 8 and 9 for me to say that without a doubt he's the number one fighter in the sport today. Like, I've seen a couple of fights that I thought were going either way with him, and he was fortunate to get a late knockout. So we'll see.
When you look at the pound-for-pound list, it should be a guy who has fought the best level of competition and a guy who's beaten the best competition over an extended period of time, and that's what Terrence Crawford has done.
If he gets Mikey Garcia and beats him, for example, would that do it for you? Would he be the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the...
No doubt about it. If Lomachenko were to defeat Mikey Garcia, he'd be no doubt the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world, and he would have to start being mentioned in all-time rankings. And if Mikey Garcia defeats Errol Spence, we'd have to start talking about him on all-time rankings, because that would be another weight division where he beat the best fighter in the division for Mikey Garcia.
Fighter in the world over
It's tough to say. It's tough to say. Right now, it's Crawford.
And Mikey Garcia don't need...
Well, we know that Andre Ward is very close friends with Terrence Crawford, so good for Andre for being loyal.
You don't even need to be thinking about Errol Spence Jr. Let me say that.
He needs to leave that alone.
He's thinking about it.
He needs to leave that alone.
Look at Andre's face. Andre felt like, what that dude thinking about? I would love to see that fight happen, because Mikey Garcia is talking about like he really believes he's going to win that fight. So maybe he sees something in Spence that a lot of other people don't see. Here's what we know about Errol Spence. He does not have good head movement. So maybe Mikey Garcia is thinking, if I can land a flush shot on that chin, we're going to see how tough he really is. I saw Errol Spence against Kell Brook. I don't think that Mikey Garcia hits any harder than Kell Brook. So that would be a hell of a fight as long as it lasts, because I don't think that Mikey Garcia is going to take a backward step. He certainly has not been as mobile since he's come back from his sojourn, from his little time off, his hiatus. So I certainly could see Mikey Garcia and Errol Spence playing a game of Russian roulette in the middle of the ring very early in their fight, should they fight.
I don't know what that's about.
I like Mikey, but come on.
I like him too,
Crawford
and that's
is-
why I said he should leave Spence alone.
Who do you like, Crawford or Spence? Quick, Dre, who wins that fight
50-50,
right
baby.
now?
I love both guys. 50-50. It's a fight that the sport of boxing needs.
All right.
That is a fight that the sport of boxing needs. Hopefully it happens sometime next year.
All right. Andre Ward, we miss you in the ring, but retirement looks good on you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Look at Molly flirting with Andre Ward again. Andre Ward was on First Take a few months ago. I think that they were in Vegas or something. And Molly was flirting with Andre Ward back then. Jalen, you better get your woman, bro.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
This photo said...
But anyway, that's basically it on Mr. Andre Ward. I do believe that he's going to make a comeback. And for you brothers who get the chance, you should check out The Contender. He does a great job on it. So peace.